A thug was trying to sell a Rolex to a tourist for $180, but just as they were bargaining, a woman suddenly offered $170. Business was snatched away, leaving the thug feeling really annoyed. He grabbed some coins and hurled them at her face, sparking a brawl between two groups. The thug went to the bar and started complaining to his boss, Sam. But suddenly, Tiger, the boss of the other gang, barged in and smashed a bottle on his head. He sat there silently, seething with hatred. Shortly after, Tiger, completely intoxicated, left with his girlfriend but encountered Sam seeking revenge on the way. Sam intended to stop him and give him a proper lesson, but unexpectedly, another car crashed into them when Tiger stopped his car. Sam's men arrived at the scene, dragged him out of the crashed car, and when the rescue team arrived, Tiger was already dead. They tried to use hydraulic shears to cut open the car and rescue the woman in the passenger seat, but suddenly, it caught fire, leaving the woman barely clinging to life. After Tiger's death, his father naturally couldn't let it go and arranged a feast, seizing the opportunity to take care of Sam as well. There had already been some tension between Sam's boss and Tiger's father, and this incident became the catalyst for their open conflict. Tiger's father reached out to the intermediary, Fat, and tasked him with arranging for a hitman to take out Sam's boss. Fat called his hometown brothers, asking them to find someone for him, but because all the jobs he arranged were too risky, no one from his hometown was willing to come. Finally, as a last resort, they reluctantly brought in the clueless Daniel. Had another motive for coming besides the job offer. The next day, Daniel reached the hotel arranged by Fat. Upon checking in, the reception handed him a cardboard box which, upon opening, revealed a handgun and part of his payment. Shortly after, the phone in the box rang, and it was Fat cautioning Daniel not to wander around recklessly. On the other end, the police learned the full story from their informant, but to them, it seemed like just another gang warfare, especially with the celebration going on due to the arrival of new recruits in the department. They didn't take the matter seriously. However, they soon realized something was amiss. All the small-time thugs on the streets had disappeared overnight. It was evident that the big shots on both sides were gearing up for an unprecedented showdown. Subsequently, the informant contacted again, informing him that the hitman had been found and was preparing to silently eliminate Sam's boss. Alex then led a team to find Fat, catching him off guard, as he hadn't expected the police to show up right after receiving the money. He knew very well that the money on the table was meant for hiring a hitman, but without solid evidence, he couldn't do much. However, while they couldn't deal with Tiger's father, they had ways to deal with Fat. They deliberately brought both of them to a place frequented by the underworld and openly informed others that Fat was now a police informant, making it impossible for him to continue operating in the underworld. Then he called his wife to the corner, and the two began to devise a plan. In the end, Fat had no choice but to betray Daniel first. However, when the police broke into the hotel room, they found it empty. Alex thought he had been fooled by Fat and immediately ordered his men to beat him up. Meanwhile, Daniel happened to see the departing officers at the hotel entrance. When Fat called Daniel to ask where he was, Daniel became wary and deliberately lied about his location. He told Fat he was having dinner at a nearby noodle shop, intending to test if Fat had betrayed him. As expected, as soon as they hung up, Fat immediately informed Alex, who rushed to the noodle shop with his men. Daniel felt utterly disheartened. He found a small hotel and rented a room. Then took out a few letters from his bag with his girlfriend's address on them. But just then, there was a commotion outside. Daniel opened the door to see a drunken man forcing a woman into the room. Rain-like slaps landed on the woman's face. Finally, the landlord rushed over and managed to drag the drunken man out. As he left, Daniel gave him a quiet look, but unexpectedly, the man pushed the door, smashing Daniel's eye. Furious, Daniel grabbed the man's hair, pulled him back, and gave him a lesson against the nearby wall. The once arrogant man now cowered, offering money as compensation, but Daniel instructed him to give the money to the woman instead. However, as soon as the man left, the woman immediately dragged Daniel away, knowing he was a notorious thug in the area, and retaliation was certain. Sure enough, as soon as they stepped out, the other side called for backup, but they never expected that the backup would turn out to be the police. The woman's name was Cecilia, and like Daniel, she had come from the mainland. Seeing Daniel's broken glasses, she took him to an optical shop to get them fixed. However, since they needed to wait for the framed glasses, the manager recommended contact lenses. As rural folks, they had never seen such high-end stuff before. One of Daniel's reasons for taking risks and coming to Hong Kong was to find his woman. Remember the woman who was hit along with Tiger at the beginning? Her name is Sue, and she's Daniel's girlfriend from his mainland days. They grew up together since childhood, but due to their impoverished hometown, Sue went out to make a living. Since then, they haven't seen each other. Daniel followed the address on the letters and found where she lived. In the house, there was only his elderly grandmother, and they found many nightclub lighters in the room. Cecilia guessed that she must be working there, so she took Daniel to look for her. Meanwhile, the two major factions started their moves, ordering their men to smash each other's establishments, but they themselves remained unseen. Coincidentally, it was Christmas Day, and fearing that the two factions might escalate the situation, the police launched a large-scale sweep. The entire Mongkok area was instantly surrounded by officers. Although they were quite reluctant, they had to follow orders from above. At this time, Daniel arrived at the nightclub, but they hadn't found Sue. Alex led his team here as well. With a gun in hand, Daniel could only escape through the back door, but because he had slapped the manager betrayed him upon his return. Immediately, Alex's team chased after them. Both sides ran up onto the pedestrian bridge, trapping the two in the middle. However, they didn't recognize Daniel, passing each other at the corner. Then, Daniel got on the elevator, but their panicked behavior caught the attention of rookie officers. When Alex spotted them again and pursued, the rookie officer pulled out a gun on the bridge, attempting to take Daniel down directly. However, the streets were crowded, risking injuring innocents. Daniel, however, didn't care and fired into the air, causing panic in the crowd, then took advantage of the chaos to flee with Cecilia. After they escaped, the police immediately called in the mobile unit. They decided to conduct a carpet search of the Mongkok area, determined to find them. However, this search method only caused chaos. While they did catch many people, they couldn't catch Daniel. After narrowly escaping, Cecilia advised him not to search anymore. Tiger's father called Fat and informed him that he had found the target's hiding place, ordering Fat to send someone to take him out immediately. Upon receiving the message, Fat immediately found Daniel, but Daniel already knew that Fat had betrayed him. His willingness to go along was actually to settle another score with him. When they arrived at the agreed location, Daniel didn't show up but instead hid in the shadows, observing the street's movements. After notifying Daniel, Fat also informed Alex. Daniel noticed him hiding behind a car through the ringing phone and cautiously approached him from behind, aiming a gun directly at him. It turned out that from the beginning, Daniel had never intended to come to kill. His reason for taking the risk was to settle a score with Fat. However, killing was not something he took lightly, and fortunately, Cecilia arrived in time to stop him. Later, Daniel threatened to make sure Fat's family wouldn't find peace, then knocked him unconscious and quietly left with Cecilia. Shortly after, Alex found Fat, who had just regained consciousness. Soon, the informant sent another message, noticing someone acting suspiciously checking into a hotel, and quickly notified Alex. Meanwhile, Cecilia and Daniel returned to the hotel where they were staying during the day. They lay down on the bed and fell asleep thinking that the storm had passed. Little did they know, another storm was on its way. On the other side, Alex led his team to the hotel mentioned by the informant. Upon entering, they cleared out all the guests. However, in the moment of opening the door, a rookie officer, too nervous, accidentally shot the person inside, causing chaos and ringing ears. Alex approached and found the person had stopped breathing. The team was in big trouble this time, but the rookie officer remained indifferent. Nevertheless, the situation had already unfolded, and the priority was to find a solution. They first placed a knife in front of the man, then proceeded to search the room. Alex pressed the rookie officer against the wall, teaching him how to take a statement. What they didn't expect was to find drugs in the room. It was a stroke of luck. The man who was shot turned out to be a drug dealer, carrying a whopping 30 million worth of drugs. The team cracked a major case, and the members were ecstatic. Even the informant who provided the tip could receive a reward. Meanwhile, Cecilia suddenly felt a stomachache. Daniel went downstairs to the convenience store to buy medicine for her, casually tossing his gun into the trash bin. He noticed the newspaper the store clerk had just put out, and the headline about Sue's and Tiger's car accident caught his attention again. He returned to the hotel with the newspaper, eager to know the details. Upon learning about Sue's accident, he fell silent. Seeing him so troubled, Cecilia offered to go out and make him a cup of tea. The men from earlier suddenly appeared, accompanied by several burly men. Daniel became worried when Cecilia didn't return, so he went out to see what was happening. But upon opening the door, he was ambushed by the men, getting beaten until he was covered in blood and his vision blurred. After beating Daniel, the men dragged Cecilia into the room, venting their anger on her before leaving the scene. When they left, Daniel, barely conscious, became increasingly enraged. He gathered his last strength and rushed downstairs, seeking justice for himself. Daniel's target was the gun he had thrown away. Just then, Alex and his team happened to be nearby having breakfast. When they saw Daniel retrieve the gun from the trash bin, they instantly realized something was wrong. Daniel aimed the gun at the man and shot his hand. The rookie officer recognized him as the hitman and charged towards him, but he forgot he had just handed over his gun. Rushing up to Daniel, he got shot through the throat. Reacting quickly, Daniel turned and ran, while Alex, seeing his teammate fall, chased after from behind. Chasing Daniel, they reached an intersection, and another officer accidentally ran into the barrel of Daniel's gun. At this moment, Alex, no longer hesitating, rushed forward and shot Daniel. As Daniel breathed his last, Sue's heartbeat stopped in the hospital. Finally, Cecilia left the city alone in haste, only to discover Daniel had left cash in her bag at the customs checkpoint. Sometimes, care from strangers can be the most precious.